Welcome everybody to another amazing episode of Wellness Warriors. I'm Dr. Veronique Desonier, better known as Dr. V. And today I have Dr. Q Collins. He is a leading scientist in developing and applying nutrition metabolic therapies to treat cancer. He has his PhD in clinical immunology, his MS in oncotherapeutics, his MA in business and health policy, and his BS in poverty healthcare and cancer epidemiology. What he's doing now is he is co-founder and principal investigator at the Center for Deuterium Depletion. And if you don't know what deuterium is, you'll find out in this podcast. I didn't know what deuterium was until about a month ago, and it just blew my mind. And I'm very excited to be able to share this information with you because especially if you're on a healing journey, this can be very key for you. Another thing that intrigued me about you, Dr. Collins, is that you are co-founder and former principal investigator of the Keto Pet Sanctuary, a 53-acre ranch outside of Austin that uses ketogenic diet and metabolic therapies to help dogs with cancer. How fun is that? So welcome to the podcast. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy doctor.
Well, thank you, Dr. V, and thank you for inviting me because, as I said, I just love what you do. I truly want your audience to know that that is the truth. So this is great. And plus, you only use one letter in your name like me. So what can I say?
It's easy. All right. So I always like to start off our podcast with the story behind the story. What was the pain that triggered the passion and led you to where you are today?
Well, let's start. This is a very, circuitous route. But as you said, I originally got my PhD in clinical immunology. My first degree was actually a PhD in metaphysics, which is the philosophy of nature, the philosophy of science. And so then my clinical my clinical immunology, while I was waiting to be a pro football player, I picked up the PhD instead of getting my head banged up all the time. And all these other things that had to do with understanding medicine and health and really from the poverty side of things as an African-American, and the things I was seeing in the community that wasn't being addressed back in the 80s and still isn't being addressed appropriately now. As a matter of fact, that was the funniest thing. Was the first the first African-American to get a PhD at the university I went to, which is the oldest cancer institute in the world. So that tells you, took 100 years to get one of us through. So anyway, but things have changed since then. So I was in this field for a long time, having worked for major pharmaceutical companies and executive management, built hospitals and done all those things. And so, and working at the FDA and the NIH, I've had a very, very, as people say, a very satisfying career in going and understanding these things and appreciating it. And having great connections at the NIH, like Dr. Fauci and Rosenberg and Dr. Collins. These are all the, back in the day, those were the guys, they look a lot older than I have to realize I look a lot older too. So every time I see Tony on TV, it's like, wow, I remember when his hair was black. Right. But it's just so amazing. But to make a long story short, along the way, I lost my daughter and my wife to cancer.
Oh, wow.
And my wife to brain cancer, which were shocking. And you can imagine being I don't want to say a noted scientist, but a scientist who knew the noted people. And none of my friends could help. None of the people I worked for could help. Especially when it was shocking enough to lose my daughter, but then having it happen to my wife was just demoralizing. Yeah. And when you understand about brain cancer, it is one of the worst cancers. It is the worst cancer you can get. When it's a glioblastoma, there's no cure. The treatments are very brutal. And from the time you're diagnosed to your lifespan is about anywhere from 8 to 14 months at most. And so what I had done here was to, my wife, I always like to tell the story. My wife came, I was in Virginia at the time. My wife came to my desk and said, hey, I read about this thing called a ketogenic diet. We should try that. And of course, oh, honey, no. Dr. Internet doesn't make any sense. I know everything there is to know about cancer. So do my friends. So don't worry about that silly stuff. And we started talking and found more and more that there wasn't anything out there for. And so she actually bound up she went to the library, bound up all the papers. She knew me very well. We're married for 35 years. Bound up all the papers, put them together, dropped them on my desk and said, read them, jerk. I was like,
there's the proof.
Yeah, there's the proof. You want your papers, there you go. And it was great. So I kept reading and going, oh, this does molecular, what? It's not from DNA? I don't understand. What do you mean cancer is not a DNA thing? It's from some metabolic. They didn't teach me this. It can't be true. And I went through. Finally, I got to the end of it and I called a guy named Tom Seifert. And he was just starting out. We got on the phone and he called me back right away and we started talking. He sent me a copy of his book to review before he put it out. And it was amazing. He gave me a lot of time. And from there, he introduced me to Dominic. And what we did there was I took everything that everybody was doing in their labs, Adrian Scheck's lab, Maroon's lab, everybody's things, and I put them tested them. I opened a lab in Virginia called the Pet Cancer Trial. And I took all of those things, sent them to people whose dogs had cancer. And from there, if it worked in those dogs, it went into my wife. So we developed things like ketones. I really started developing the ketogenic diet as a way to treat cancer. And I'm one of the first people to really do that and understanding how it would have to work for people. And I always tell people the great story about that is, as a man, my wife took care of me. I was lucky as I don't know what, I really was. We were been together since we were 16 years old. So we grew up together. And so as we went through, I had to learn to cook. And what was great about the ketogenic diet is that it's very scientific, so many grams of this, so many grams of that, a lot of fat. I could do that. So I started doing that, developing meals and all these things. And fast forward, my wife lived she was given 8 weeks to live when we first got the diagnosis of cancer. Her glioblastoma was about the size of a baseball by the time we found out. But she lived almost 2 years using all the ketogenic diets and all these other metabolic therapies we came up with. And I coined the term starve your cancer with Tom, and they told me not to use that. It was too brutal. We don't want to say those kind of things, but that was my concept of what it meant back then. Yeah. And so we did all these things. We made all DCA. We looked at all these. She was the first person to do all of these things, all of them. As she says, she was my 6'2" mouse. So it was very good. We worked very hard, but ultimately, because they didn't diagnose her sooner, her brain tumor, they thought she had a heart condition, so they put a pacemaker in. She was a very big athlete, so they didn't think of looking for an MRI to look at her brain. They said, oh, it's her heart. That's what it is. And so by the time we found it, hyperbaric oxygen therapy plus ketogenic diets plus IV vitamin C were necessary as a frontline treatment for this. She couldn't get in hyperbaric oxygen therapy because she had a pacemaker and it would blow your heart up. And so the last 3 months, we just got in a car and just drove around. And it's all we did. And the last week that she was living, I got a call from a company called Quest Nutrition. And they're the people that make the Quest bars. Yeah. And they were so interesting. They started telling me that they wanted to do this thing that I was doing with the pet cancer trial, but they wanted to do it big. They wanted to try something to see. And if I could do this, then they would fund my studies for people with glioblastomas. And my wife looked at me and said, don't you dare. So it's just like, you're not going to do it. This is my time for sure. Don't do this. So what we ended up doing is after she passed, she passed about 1 to 2 weeks later, I called them up and said, in 30 days, I'll come out and look at it. And I wasn't very serious because I was like, they make candy bars. This is silly. I'm a scientist. But I went out there, lovely people, Ron Pinna, they were just so into science and nutrition. And as a small company, they were making a lot of money, and they showed me what they had. And I went, oh my God, with all these things, I can make these meals. I can do these things, because what I understood is when somebody has cancer, they need all the help they can get, especially when it comes to the things that they consume. So their food. So we made the first line of ketogenic meals that were used in several clinical trials, and that's around the country with glioblastoma, one in leukemia. But by doing that, we were able to take all of those trials that were failing with ketogenic diets, make it more like medicine, and those ketogenic diet trials started to work much better.
Wonderful.
And so that's from there. From there, we kept going, and we were able to fly people in from all over the world to the Quest. And we opened this cancer sanctuary in Austin, Texas, that we did the same things. We treated dogs like they were the president. I mean, it's crazy. They were able to get hyperbaric oxygen therapy, IV vitamin C. They were able to get all of these things. And then we would cure them of their cancer, and then they would live out their lives on this big farm where they had exercise and playmates and a swimming pool. It was just amazing that Quest put all this money. But for my purpose was to get the people, but their purpose, they actually loved their dogs. They didn't have kids. So I really got to understand that, about how people love different animals, whether it's a person or an animal. But that took me to this last part of understanding how ketogenic diet worked. And I was introduced to something called Deuterium depletion at one of our conferences. We put on a conference in every metabolic oncology, or metabolic therapeutics is what it's called now, down in Tampa. And that's where we started inviting people from all over the world in ketogenic diets and made them rock stars. So everybody came down. We get about 10 to 12,000. I think they had 25,000 people last year in California.
Wow.
And so it's a big thing. And everybody that's anybody in metabolic therapies comes to this thing now. It's just amazing, an amazing, amazing thing. So that's Quest Nutrition. They did fantastic. And from there, I found out about Deuterium depletion about 5 years ago. And so that's where we are now. So now we've cured dogs, cured mice, and now we're starting in people. We've done, there have been 2 clinical trials with this, one in breast cancer, one in prostate cancer in Europe. We're going to do one in the United States. We treated over 10,000 people. So I always like to say, Dr. V, we're an overnight success after 30 years.
Right. So in these latest trials were on deuterium depletion.
Yes, deuterium depletion. Yeah, and what we do is I will tell people that, again, don't think of this as an alternative therapy. It's really complementary therapy. And what I mean by that is, as we talk more about what deuterium depletion is and what deuterium is, what it ultimately allows you to do is to make the patient more resilient emotionally, socially, physically, and cognitively, and to make those standard of care like radiation and chemo work better. And so we've published over 100 papers on this, but make them work better, and thereby making the standard of care work better and the side effects less. What you're able to do from there is to get better clinical outcomes. And that's our rallying cry, get better clinical outcomes. One more thing that we did there is we collected thousands and thousands of research papers. And I love what you do, because every time I listen to one of your podcasts or one of your YouTube videos, you're a cancer hacker. And that's really what you are. Yeah. And what we do is we actually are cancer hackers too. What we've done now is taken all these thousands of papers and put it into a database. And so the reason they call me a futurist is because what we do, I predict your future based on, it's like functional medicine on steroids, is what I like to tell people. I predict your future on markers and life markers, everything from your vitamin D levels and how you got that vitamin D, how long you can hold your breath, to what Netflix movies you watch, you know, because all these things, what your audience knows, or what you already know, is there are tens of thousands of papers that tell you what you should do to get better, to beat cancer, but nobody's put it together until we've done it in one place. And so we've combined, so now what we have is a way to affect cancer and a way to measure those markers. So when you talk about vitamin D or one of your iodine, we've got those papers and we can track all those things to say what's real and what's not real.
And where do we have access to that database?
So that is all. So right now it is part of what we do is for the Center of Deuterium Depletion. So when we put you in a protocol, what you have is a portal. And within this portal, once we understand, just like you do, once we understand all the things that are missing and we start to plug the holes, then we can measure again, and the database with this AI on top, right? Of course, everybody's got to use AI because you're not going to read 10,000 papers, trust me.
Right.
So, but it's going to tell you what is the right thing for you and lay out your map. So we're constantly mapping and then coming back from your results to change your course a little bit, to change it a little bit better, change it a little bit better. And as a result, we have helped people get incredibly fantastic results. Remission rates are longer, lifespan is longer, quality of life is super better, because what I love, again, I'm going to keep slapping you on the back because I really believe this.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just that it's surviving cancer is not enough. It is not enough. You want to have even a better life after, because you know what to do. And if you know what to do to prevent cancer, especially prevent it from coming back, you will have a better life, because that's what it requires. To eat better, to live better, to have less grief, all these things which has this effect on deuterium, which we will talk about what that is next.
Okay. I did order a kit. I'm waiting on, I'm going to do I think it's the breath test, or
yeah.
I'm just.
Well, that's really cool, because again, this is not new. This is not a new science. The first Nobel Prize was given for it in the 1930s. 4 Nobel Prizes have been given for this over the years. The last one in 2018 for what's called the nanomotors, which we'll talk about. But up until that time, there was no way to measure deuterium inside a body. Nobody was able to do that. What we did, what I did, and Dr. Cooper, we invented these tests that will be able to measure deuterium levels in your tissue and in your saliva, blood, all these other different, in your hair, every place. We can measure deuterium all these places, because it really is just a marker for health and a marker for age. So we invented this, and we invented also how to look at it and how to see it in an MRI. So this is all very medicine-y and science-y. I want to tell people this is, we're
very interesting. Yeah, that you could see it in an MRI.
Yeah, yeah. MRIs are actually measures of protons. And most people don't know that. That's what it's measuring. And the difference between a deuterium and a hydrogen element is a proton, or excuse me, a neutron. So they weigh something different. They weigh differently. And so just think of a magnet. So when a magnet hits something, the heavier it is, it's stuck down, right? So as the force of the magnet goes off, then the lighter thing flips off first. That's how an MRI actually works. They give you contrast to put more of that heavy stuff in it, so they can see the light stuff release. But if they don't put the contrast in, they're just they're roundabout looking at deuterium and hydrogen. That's all they're looking at.
Interesting. All right, so the $1 million question, what is deuterium?
Oh, I love it. Thank you. So everybody get ready. I'm going to make it simple. It took me 20 years to figure out how to make it simple. Deuterium and hydrogen, everybody knows what hydrogen is. The most, you're 60% to 66% hydrogen, depending on if you're a baby or a 90-year-old. But you're mostly hydrogen in the form of water. Hydrogens are the things that hold us together. Think of them as like nuts and bolts, or or Lego pieces. That's the thing that connects everything, that makes all your proteins stay together, carbohydrates stay together. Think of it, that's what you need to start thinking about hydrogens. And it also is what binds to oxygen when we breathe to make water. Deuterium is a twin of hydrogen. Think of them as fraternal twins, right? You have two girls, but the second girl, Deuterium, is twice as tall and twice as heavy. But they're exactly the same person. But the only thing is they look different. Because they look different, they can't do the same things. So when you look at deuterium and hydrogen, they have different boiling points. They have, or when they become part of water, different freezing points. So deuterium freezes first. It boils at a lower temperature. Excuse me, hydrogen boils, so hydrogen becomes steam first, right? It rises up because it's lighter. So we call it heavy hydrogen and light hydrogen, or heavy water and light water. And if everybody thinks about heavy water, the first thing you think about is an atom bomb. And we think about, and that's why they call it heavy water, because it's made of deuterium is in it. So the way your body works, when we think about food and drugs and supplements and all of these things, your body takes in food, and we think of proteins and fats and carbohydrates, but your body sees the hydrogens. And it takes these hydrogens off your food, takes it into your mitochondria, and inside your mitochondria, in something called the Krebs cycle or TCA cycle, it makes ATP. We all know this, Yep, there we go. Yep, that's it.
I saw that on another video.
Yeah, inside your mitochondria, you have, or inside your cell, you have hundreds of thousands of mitochondria. And inside your mitochondria, you have thousands of hundreds of thousands of tiny little motors called nanomotors. And if you think of like how electric turbine runs, the hydrogens run past these motors, and it makes ATP, makes energy in water. So for every 3 pounds of food you eat, you make about 65 pounds of energy, 65 pounds.
Wow.
And 3,000 gallons of water a day. That's we're nuclear subs. And that's what we have to we really are nuclear powered machines. And we just never thought about that. When deuterium, which is twice as big, and think these motors are going at 6,000 revolutions per minute. These motors are turning that fast. That's faster than the Maserati or Ferrari, or almost as fast as the fastest jet engine. So it's going so fast. These hydrogens are going so fast, pushing around to make all this energy, because you need so much energy just to survive, that when a deuterium comes in, it's twice as big and heavy. It hits that nanomotor and breaks it. And when that nanomotor breaks, it can't make ATP anymore. It can't make this water anymore. It's gone. You have to really make a new one. You can't repair it. So what is disease? So, and understand, let me go back again and remember, the whole process is this hydrogen, the right hydrogens are making energy, and you need energy for everything. I mean, everything you need energy, it's cellular energy.
So let me interject too, so people understand, and I didn't know this either, is that deuterium is a naturally occurring mineral or element. We need it for growth. We need it within plants. It's in the oceans abundantly, which I live near the ocean. I'm there. Oh no, too much deuterium. But anyway, just so, okay. So.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you for saying that, because again, it's not a toxin. It's not a poison. It's life. What's happening on our planet, however, is as we've become more modern and modern man and all these comforts, we've put more deuterium into our diets using GMO foods, which require deuterium, using irrigated farms, which uses water instead of rain and mountain water. All these old things that they used to do in ancient 500 years ago. We don't follow those practices anymore, because these agricultural things that we do add more deuterium to our foods, even the seeds and all of it. So GMO foods the reason is not because they're bad for you, is not because they have some kind of strange DNA and it's going to grow a third eye or a fourth eye in this case. And it's because it has higher levels of deuterium in it. And when you eat it, that deuterium then is going to become part of you, right? You are what you eat. You are what, and this happens to be, everybody knows all these things already. We just discovered on the molecular level how it plays. And by understanding the molecular level, you then can understand the macro level when you talk about different diets, you talk about different supplements, you can talk about all these terms in terms of deuterium, because your body has a billion ways. Your body is set up, everything in your body is set up to get rid of deuterium. That's what it's for, to get rid of deuterium. The reason you sleep, the way you sleep in deep sleep and REM sleep, that's to get rid of deuterium. Your biome, the way your biome works is it gets rid of deuterium. Your kidneys, it gets rid of deuterium. It binds, nitrogen binds deuterium to leave it out. You breathe, oxygen comes in, oxygen binds to water to make H2, to binds to hydrogen to make water, but it binds the deuterium first. So if you breathe, then it's gonna bind the deuterium, make it heavy water and get it out of your body. Temperature.
Okay, but if we're getting deuterium from GMO foods, too many complex carbohydrates,
yes,
the wrong kind of water, then our body just becomes overburdened with deuterium. And then what happens?
Yeah, so then you kill your then we go back, everybody's mitochondria, then you kill your mitochondria. When you kill your mitochondria, you have no cellular energy. When you have no cellular energy, you cannot detox. You cannot, your immune system is gone. Your insulin can't work. It's just energy. So you can't breathe correctly anymore. You can't sleep. You're agitated, you're sad, you're depressed. All this has to do with the level of energy. And you can't think your way out of things. That's why we talk about brain fog with all your, I'm sure your listeners remember, that is a function of deuterium. So in modern life, we've actually destroyed all of our ways to deplete deuterium. You know, we don't sleep as well. We're stressed. We don't breathe as well. We hyperventilate. And so what we've done is to look at all these different ways to deplete deuterium, understand it, and then go out to fix it by using deuterium as the marker. So when we repair the biome, we're not so much worried about the different type of bacteria. We're worried about the function of the biome. Is it able to deplete deuterium the way it's supposed to? The function of the kidney. When you wake up, when you take your first urination in the morning, is there more deuterium in it or less deuterium? Which tells you you're getting rid of it at night, because that's what sleep is for. You literally have garbage bags on those little nanomotors that fill up with deuterium. They're garbage. They say fill up, they fill up, and at nighttime you get rid of them. If you can't sleep, that means those garbage bags are there and they burst and make you fatigued and tired and diseased and old and gain weight. I mean, it's marvelous. It's really, this is going to be something that will become part of what medicine does. And it's moving more that way now, this understanding, because we're not saying that anybody's wrong. And I want to make sure people understand that you are not wrong with anything you're doing. We're now just able to tell you what's more right. That's the best way to put it.
Now, you have a center for deuterium depletion. Is it a physical center where patients can go?
Well, we work with a number of doctors, but we have our own metabolic oncology clinic, and that's located in Los Angeles, California, ran by Dr. Alan Green. And right there, we not only use all of our techniques, like deuterium depleted water, which is the frontline use, and we just invented another water, work with another one called Cure, which is an oxygenated water. Has about 1,000 times more oxygen than regular water has. So it's like having HBOT in a bottle. So we're able now to remove deuterium two ways. One, to dilute it out with deuterium depleted water. And now with this new oxygenated water, super oxygenated water, we're able to actually also bind it that way and to as your patients will know, or as your listeners will know, as you get cancer and get older, you hyperventilate, you can't breathe very well. So you have to learn how to breathe, and we have breathing techniques, but this water is actually going to help a lot. We're just so excited that it should make what we do even better. But we do have our clinic here, and we not only use this part, but we use it in concert with standard of care for chemo, but partial chemo. So you don't have to use as much chemo, partial radiation, hyperthermia. And hyperthermia, by this one, I mean, it's not just getting in a hot pool. It's gigantic $1 million machine that has also been shown to help standard of care grow or make work better. Mm-hmm. And then we have a lot of things and you're going to love the last one that we've just started is our emotional oncology part. Awesome. And what we're doing, and that's the idea that, especially in breast cancer, is that a lot of the emotions is very, very, very important and may even be the cause of cancer. I'm not even going to say it's not. But if you're able to address those emotions, we know that 90% of our patients or our clients do better once that emotion is gone. And it's just so, our as I said, our outcomes, which are published, add anywhere from, depending on what stage you are, anywhere from 5 to 20 years against what the expected outcomes are.
That's amazing. That's incredible. And people that are listening can go to the website and you can order tests and do them in the comfort of your home and find out what your deuterium levels are. You can actually work with a coach or, just get some help online. If you can't travel to LA, yes, you can at least start the process. And from what I understood on the website, it's basically you're teaching people about, ketogenic diet, eliminating the carbs, the sugars, getting into the ketosis state, improving the water, the breathing, the sleep, all of those things. So.
Yes, you're exactly right. And we even call it a Deuterium depleted diet because it's not about meat. It's about measuring the amount of deuterium in the foods that you're eating. And so we're very agnostic about that. Yes, a ketogenic diet, as I started, was all about meat and fat. That's not true. Your body could care less if it's a steak or a donut. It simply wants the right hydrogens or the wrong hydrogens. It's your choice. But yes, you can come to our site. Again, I always talk about our whole thing is to get better clinical outcomes. That's what we do. We sell products to get there, but no, that's not the important part. The important part is that you do better. You do better. Because I don't want anybody dying needlessly like my wife or daughter did, needlessly. So you on our site, which is ddcenters.com, doubledcenters.com, and for you /BCC, breast cancer conquerors, you can come there again, ddcenters.com /BCC, or if you just want to put in get better clinical outcome, better cancer outcomes, you can get to our site and understand everything. It's very simple. It's highly, highly, highly effective. And most importantly, the most important thing it does, it makes everything that you do work better. So everything, there's nothing that it can't make work better except stuff that doesn't work.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Dr. Collins, do you have any parting words of wisdom for someone who's on a healing journey or perhaps newly diagnosed right now and they're listening to us?
Yes, I do. I really do. And that is, we always say one thing. They're going to give you different outcomes. They're going to say, this is what's going to happen to you. This is going to happen. This, and it's going to scare the frig out of you. What I want to tell you is once you understand how it works, understand the deuterium levels, understand everything that Dr. V's talking about, what you will do is no different. No different. And that's what I want people to start thinking. Don't even make it like Snoopy, that blah, 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 blah. That's what you should hear because they don't know what you know. So that's what I want to tell people. It's just a bump in the road. and we'll show you how to get around those bumps.
Yeah. As we tell the women in our community, there's no need for fear. You know, traditional medicine has created such a fearsome outlook about the word cancer that it doesn't have to be that way. And, you know, I've been through it. You've seen firsthand examples with your family as well, and all the patients that you've seen. You know, there's a better way, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be where East meets West, and
Yes.
you've done that beautifully with the work that you're doing. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and the hope that you're giving, and appreciate all the research. And I can't wait to get my kit and get tested.
No, and thank you, because again, you know, you're going to be one of those pictures on the Hall of Fame, because that's what I want people to see, is this is who you can be.
Oh, well, thanks. All right, this is Dr. V sending you a big healing heart hug. Till next time, bye for now.